Welcome to The Nation ASEAN Plus. I'm PASHA RAHIM. In today's episode, we shine a spotlight on a troubling trend in the region, kidnapping for ransom, and it's a growing challenge for ASEAN. Now, as criminal networks become more sophisticated, the threat to regional stability and public safety is becoming harder to ignore. Joining us to share his insights is Professor DATUK Dr. KASSIM MOHAMED, the Vice Chancellor of Enforcement, Leadership and Management University, a seasoned expert in law enforcement and security matters. Welcome to The Nation, DATUK. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Pasha, for having me.
Speaking of kidnapping for ransom, or in short, we call it KFR, from what I understand, it has actually been a long-standing serious concern in several parts of Southeast Asia. And also, we're talking about maritime border security, and also we're talking about conflict-prone areas. And though a lot of people would assume that our region we're pretty much stable and peaceful, we still have large criminal syndicates, we still have problems with insurgent groups and also pirates. Now, just for the benefit of the viewers and for myself also actually, perhaps we could define our conversation for today and just tell us what kidnapping in the context of this conversation means.
Okay, I think the elements of kidnapping for ransom or KFR, the elements of kidnapping, there's three elements there. There must be what you call unlawful taking or confinement of a victim,
right?
Whether it's by force or by deception, and the intent is to hold for ransom, and the other one is the demand for ransom is made. So those are the three ingredients of kidnapping for ransom in a nutshell. But you can explain, I can explain further, but I think in a nutshell, that's how you define kidnapping. Okay. And there's also a form of exploitation that you do. One example I can give is if it's forceful or by deception. If it's forceful, it's quite clear-cut.
Right.
You take someone without his consent, take him or her to a place where nobody knows, and then get the ransom demand. And once the ransom is paid, they release. But if by deception, you can see that happening a lot nowadays. By deception can be what we see is like what happened where we saved many of Malaysians who were in Myanmar and Cambodia because they were part of a scam group, online scam.
Right, so these job scams, those are considered kidnapping for ransom as well?
Some of it, yes, some of it, if the elements are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so just to understand the threat, Datuk, perhaps you could share with us your perspective on how the threat of kidnapping for ransom has evolved over the years across the ASEAN.
Yeah, previously it was much more individualized, and it's evolved from a localized issue to a more complex and transnational, what they call problem, fueled by organized crime groups and the increasing use of technology. And also there's the issue of geographical location. The offense is perpetrated over a few international jurisdiction, and that has been made the issue of tackling it a bit problematic. And it is now, as you can see, I'll give you an example. In 2009,
right.
If you look at in 2009, the example is where the Chandlers, Richard and Paul Chandler, they were kidnapped by Somalian pirates, and a ransom demand was made. But in the end, because they are almost being traded to the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, but they managed to, the family managed to raise funds to save them. So, but there was an issue of changing hands of the what they call the victims themselves. More localized where Malaysia is concerned. If you look at the 2000 kidnappings of foreigners in Sipadan, they were kidnapped in Sipadan and they were brought over to the Philippines, and ransom demand was made.
Right.
So you can see that's the issue, a territorial issue also. So, and it has evolved actually. Now it's become almost a big business if you look at the statistic given by the Control Risk Group, the kidnapping for ransom business is a $3 trillion business annually.
Wow, that's a huge amount.
Yeah.
So early on, you also mentioned, that kidnapping now, it involves multiple countries. It's transnational, it's a trans-border problem. What are some of the hotspots for kidnapping to happen?
If you are looking into ASEAN, statistics shows that most of the kidnapping for ransom cases is on the upward trend, like in Myanmar, Cambodia,
Right.
and Laos is seeing an upward trend for that. But there is also issue of classification. For instance, sometimes kidnapping is classified as something else.
Right. What do you mean by that classification?
Okay,
so is there different classifications for different types of kidnappings?
Yeah. There are so many typologies of kidnapping.
Okay.
There's kidnapping for camel racing, there's kidnapping for organ trafficking, there's kidnapping for human trafficking, and all that. For instance, I'll give you one example where the Serious Organized Crime Agency of the UK, they classify express kidnapping that happens in Mexico. In Mexico, if someone is taken against his will, taken to an ATM, and then the ransom is paid, and they release the victim, SOCA, which is a Serious Organized Crime Agency in the UK, classify that as express kidnapping.
Right.
And this happened in Mexico, and they say there's about 12,000 cases of that annually. But the same thing happened in the square mile of London. The same element happened, but the classification is aggravated robbery. So the kidnapping element is not there, because the reason is, if let's say the Malaysian foreign advisory for Malaysian to travel to the UK and say, be careful of the square mile of London, because there's a spate of 350 kidnappings annually, what would that do? That will bring down people coming in as tourists into the UK. But when the Sipadan thing happened, the Sipadan kidnapping happened, 25 years on, the FCO still say, be careful if you go to some parts of Sabah.
Right.
Based upon what happened in the year 2000. So that's an issue there.
Right. So is there a preconceived notion that somehow Western countries are safer than Asian countries when it comes to issues or cases like this?
I think that's a very good question that you ask, because I've been living in the UK for many years. It depends on how, where you are and what you do.
Right.
But if you talk about kidnapping, it does happen in the West too.
Right.
In many countries it happens. The only thing, I think the spotlight has been always given to the South. And I think that's the issue that we face now.
Right.
I'll give you one example, because what the statistic does is it has an impact on the economy of a country. I can give you one example, like Thailand last year. There was a kidnapping of a Chinese actor, and Thailand has always been where 18% of their income is generated from tourism, but they saw a fall in the arrival of Chinese tourists there just because of that kidnapping, and that actually has a detrimental effect on the economy in the long run. So I think that's where we as ASEAN, have to look into this kidnapping for ransom issue with a more microscopic approach of the things that's happening here.
Okay, so speaking of looking at it from with a more microscopic view, perhaps we could try to also understand, is there a certain profile for kidnappers to target, who they kidnap for ransom?
My research, my PhD research is on kidnapping for ransom. My research subject were kidnappers who've never been caught, and when I interviewed those kidnappers, but these are just localized organized crime groups. One of the modus operandi that they do is they make sure that they do the intelligence on who they're going to kidnap. Okay, I'll give you an example from my own research. The victim selection usually is also from those who are in the organized crime group. The justification for that is they say they need fast money, and usually organized crime groups they have a lot of money which they don't keep in the bank. They keep it cash somewhere. So the easiest way is to actually target those what you call those kind of victims. But that's another story there. But now if you look at the victim selection here, it's quite random in a sense. For instance, if you look at express kidnapping, the first thing they look at is tourists, and they look at the jewelry that the tourists wear, and they think, okay, you have a nice watch or a nice handbag, you must have a lot of money, even though sometimes the watch is actually a fake watch.
Easy target. So that's why a lot of the times, travel advisories, they tell you, not to be too flashy when you're traveling,
Exactly.
not to, wear too much jewelry. But also, that's if you're talking about these express kidnappings. But we also have cases of kidnappings where, like you mentioned earlier, things like human trafficking. And I think one of the things that a lot of people are very, very concerned and worried about is organ harvesting. In cases such as those, who typically are the victims? Because most of the time, it happens to people who are, they're not high-profile victims. They're just regular citizens.
Yeah, I think when it comes to organ trafficking, there are so many different types of victims that they target. Sometimes they target people who are homeless. The reason because they're homeless, there's no records of them, then they go under the radar if they go missing.
Zero risk, nobody knows.
Risk.
Yeah.
Kidnap them, take them somewhere, harvest the organ, and that's it. They're gone. And that has happened many times, but organ trafficking is a very big business, and sometimes some hospitals, I'm not talking about Malaysia, some hospitals in our neighboring countries, they are complicit in that sense because there's a demand for organs. I'm not going to name names of hospitals, but some of them are complicit in that, because it's a business, and to the organized crime group, it's just business. The victim is just a valuable good if it's for ransom.
Right.
If it's for organ, their organ is something which is valuable, and how they harvest that, God knows how. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, no, let's try not to imagine what happens, in those cases. But I mean, like you said, so, these people look at humans as commodities for them to sell. Let's move the conversation forward, and let's talk about how ASEAN is responding to kidnapping for ransom cases. How would you assess ASEAN's response so far to transnational kidnappings? Do we have regional collaboration? Are we working well together? Obviously, there needs to be some level of information sharing. How is that going?
I think ASEAN has come up with a number of responses. One of the responses is in terms of the cooperation as well as the coordination between ASEAN countries. The ASEAN has strengthened this cooperation among the member states through bodies like the ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on Transnational Crime, which is the AMMTC, and the ASEAN Senior Official Meeting on Transnational Crime, which is SOMTC. The other thing is that the other initiative they take is the Strategic Documents Initiative. So they have adopted strategic documents like the ASEAN Convention Against Trafficking in Person, especially women and children, and also the Plan of Action against Trafficking of Person. There's also a multi-sectoral approach that they are doing. There's quite a lot there, and focus is also on protection and also capacity building. And many initiatives have been taken there to enhance the capabilities of member states in preventing kidnapping for ransom and trafficking, and Malaysia has come up with a few initiatives, especially the Minister of Defence, I think Datuk Sri Khalid Nordin, from his own idea and initiative, they've come up with the mobile operating base, because previously in the ASCOM area or the Sabah area, we have static operating base to look into incursion as well as those who criminal elements group that comes in. But now we have this mobile, what they call mobile operating bases.
Okay, so when you say mobile operating bases, are they on wheels? Are they on boats? Because we're trying to understand, we're trying to see the big picture
most
here.
Most of it is mobile. Most probably, some of them is they're using small rigs, small ships, which can, the maneuverability of those bases is the one that actually, what they call, make it a bit difficult for people to come in.
Right, so is this what we're looking at right now? If we can have a look at this screen, okay, that's what it looks like. That's what a mobile operations base looks like.
That's one of it, and there's a few other like the boats and all that, where we have personnel in that, and keeping a watch into our territorial waters.
Right. So I suppose one of the ways, how we keep our people safe, even when you're traveling, is also we need to talk about border security as well. So how important or how well are we doing that right now?
Well, Malaysian borders, we have this maritime. We are surrounded by the seas.
Yeah.
Although the Peninsular Malaysia, we have Thailand. There's a bit of the land base, but essentially we're surrounded by waters. So in terms of that, maritime security is very important for us, and because the border is very porous, so we do now have many agencies that are protecting the territorial waters, especially with regards to criminal elements that try to come in or try to go out. For instance, sometimes when the offense is committed in Malaysia, the perpetrators will make sure they go out of Malaysia to be safe for a cooling down period. So these are the borders need to be actually strengthened.
Right, and that's where really, when we think about it, these joint operations between nations are very, very important in these cases. However, we also understand that within ASEAN we have a very, we have a non-interference policy. But how do we balance that, between sovereignty and also solidarity? Because obviously we need to work between countries in order to secure not only our country but also to make sure that the entire region is safe. So how do we do that?
I think where the kind of cooperation is concerned, I think our law enforcement agencies, that looks into all this, they have very good rapport with the ASEAN, their ASEAN counterparts. They have been working together for a long time, especially if in ASEAN we have ASEANapol, internationally we have the Interpol. We have been working very well with each other. And sometimes it's through unofficial channels, and sometimes it's through official channels, and the sharing of intelligence actually helps ASEAN as a group itself. And there's a lot of cooperation there, and that's why you can see many times we have joint exercises between ASEAN countries, and that creates solidarity among us. So the issue of guarding our sovereignty, I think, is not actually an issue, because sovereignty is, unless we go into, let's say we go into Thailand and we do it de facto, then there's something which is wrong. But I don't think the enforcement agency does that. Yeah.
All right. We've got about 5 minutes left to go. Datuk, perhaps, just moving forward, how do you think we can build a safer ASEAN? What do you think we need in order to build a region where people are genuinely safe from the threat of kidnapping?
I think there's a multi-pronged approach that ASEAN need to come up with. At the moment, there's a lot of initiative that's going on, but it's actually quite a mixed bag. Yeah. But I think some of the things that ASEAN need to do is in terms of educating everyone about the problem of kidnapping for ransom, and also strengthening the cooperation and collaboration between all the ASEAN countries, come up with policies that can assist law enforcement, because sometimes law enforcement, they work in silos, but there's no such thing now that we can work in silo, because crime has become, and kidnapping has become a transnational in nature. So I think as we being the chair of ASEAN, maybe the initiative can be further enhanced, especially with regards to when we're looking at Visit Malaysia year in 2026.
Yeah, exactly. So, we are looking forward to a large influx of visitors into Malaysia. We don't want people to feel unsafe coming into the country.
Exactly.
What are some of the things that, we can do in order to convince people that it is absolutely safe to come visit Malaysia?
In terms of crime, any kind of crime, it's very difficult for you to assure anyone 100%. But what you can do is to show that the country itself is actually taking all the initiative to make sure crime is actually at the lowest level that they can. And that needs to be a concerted effort by the government, the law enforcement agency, as well as the general public. And I think Visit Malaysia year would be a great year for us.
Yeah, hopefully. Now, just looking at the long-term vision, obviously it's important for us, Malaysia, to be a safe country for people to visit, but we also want to make sure that the region, ASEAN as a whole, is a safe country for not just people to visit, but also for our people to move around the region as well. Perhaps you could share with us what are some of the what are some of the ways that all of the ASEAN member states can work together in order for us to enjoy a peaceful and stable ASEAN region?
I think part of it I've actually explained with regards to the cooperation that we need to have.
Right.
But there's also a where they could come up with a clear action plan with regards to, one thing is with victim protection, if there are victims, on how victims are actually being handled. There's also the issue of making sure when perpetrators are caught, they are given the stiffest of sentence, and that's where, if you can show that you're not only doing something, you're seen to be doing everything to stop the scourge of kidnapping for ransom, for instance, and I think people would be rest assured about coming to Malaysia or anywhere in Asia or ASEAN.
All right, and that pretty much concludes our conversation for today. It was really nice having you on the show today, Professor Datuk. That wraps up this edition of The Nation ASEAN Plus. Now, as kidnapping for ransom evolves into a transnational threat, ASEAN must respond with unity, urgency, and also shared responsibility, as Datuk has shared with us today. For more updates on ASEAN developments, please visit the ASEAN page on bernama.com and follow us on all our social media channels, YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook for the latest news. I'm PASHA RAHIM. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow us for more in-depth conversations on the issues that matter.